standing in the entrance, appeared vulnerable, a solitary figure facing 5 armed men, emerging from the tempest. Yet within 60 minutes, these very individuals would desperately contact her spouse, pleading for her safeguard. Under her command, the gale screamed over the desolate terrain, hurling rain against the timber structure of the remote dwelling. Against the door frame, Martha Whitmore positioned herself, observing the horsemen materialize from the gloom like specters forming from the tempest. 5 mounted figures concealed their faces under broad hats, liquid cascading from their garments, causing her pulse to race frantically. Yet she maintained her composure, keeping her hands from trembling. 3 days of perilous travel separated them from civilization. Miles stretched without any neighbors. No assistance would arrive. Only she remained in this dwelling that served as her refuge until this evening. The first rider descended from his mount, his footwear creating squelching sounds in the mire as he advanced. A towering, wide-shouldered figure bearing a face weathered by harsh existence and difficult decisions. Beyond the illumination cast by her doorway lamp, he halted. "Ma'am," he greeted, acknowledging her with the tip of his hat brim. "Boone Carter's my name. My companions, and I require accommodation tonight. This tempest grows more severe." Under the wavering light, Martha examined their countenances. Rough individuals, every one. Men who seize their desires first and question later, evident in their gazes, the manner they regarded each other, the relaxed assurance born from knowing they possessed all authority. However, their assumption was incorrect. "My apologies," she responded, her words nearly lost in the gale. "I cannot assist you." The youngest among them, a slender man with anxious eyes, moved restlessly in his saddle. "Ma'am, our journey spans days. No alternative destination exists." Boone's features grew stern. He advanced another pace, and Martha glimpsed metal glinting at his side. "That lacks hospitality. An isolated woman would benefit from maintaining favorable relations with wanderers." The menace lingered between them like vapor. Martha experienced a recognizable burden of hopelessness filling her chest, identical emotions she'd endured daily following her spouse's demise 6 months prior. Tonight differed, however. Tonight her strategy was prepared. Beyond Boone, she observed the remaining 4 men, still mounted and watching. Her smile emerged, and something within that expression caused Boone to retreat unconsciously. "Your assessment is correct," she declared, widening the door's opening. "Enter, gentlemen. However, I impose one stipulation." Boone's brow furrowed. "What manner of stipulation?" Martha's smile expanded. For the initial time since their arrival, she sensed control of the situation. "You may remain overnight, all of you. Yet during your presence beneath my roof," she hesitated, allowing the words to suspend in the electrically charged atmosphere, observing curiosity replace doubt in their eyes, "you must address me as your spouse." The quiet extended like a rope stretched to breaking. 5 seasoned men gazed at the woman in the doorway, their thoughts wrestling to comprehend her words. Address her as her spouse? The demand was so peculiar, so unforeseen that none could formulate a response. Boone's hand moved instinctively toward his armament. "Lady, are you mentally sound? That's an exceedingly odd request." Martha remained unflinching. Instead, she retreated into her home's warmth, leaving the entrance open as invitation. "Unusual circumstances require unusual arrangements, Mr. Carter. The decision rests with you." The youngest rider, Eli Thompson, cleared precipitation from his vision. "Ma'am, we simply need dry sleeping quarters. No games are necessary." "This isn't recreational," Martha responded, her tone carrying sharpness that commanded their attention. "This concerns survival, yours and mine." The storm's intensity increased, as though nature itself urged them toward resolution. Lightning fractured the sky, revealing their desperate circumstances. Temperature descended, making hypothermia a genuine danger. Silas Ward, the group's eldest member, dismounted with effort. "What's a deception, lady? Women such as yourself don't extend such offers without seeking something in exchange." Martha approached the fireplace, extending her hands toward the flames. Though the action appeared casual, her positioning was calculated. From this location, she could observe them all. More crucially, they could observe her Witness the resolve in her stance, the confidence that seemed impossible given the situation. "The condition is straightforward," she stated, turning toward them. "During your stay, you follow my regulations. You address me appropriately. You conduct yourselves as gentlemen, and reciprocally, you receive nourishment, warmth, and accommodation." Amos Rollins, the most belligerent of the group, laughed bitterly. "You're delusional if you believe 5 armed men will participate in domestic pretense with you." Even while speaking, another lightning strike revealed a harsh reality beyond. The storm intensified rather than diminished. They could attempt traveling through it, but that meant gambling with their existence. Martha retrieved a whiskey bottle from a cabinet, placing it on the table alongside 6 glasses. The action was audacious, nearly confrontational. "From my perspective, gentlemen, 3 options exist. You can return to that storm and risk the elements. You can force entry and seize your desires, proving yourselves no superior to beasts, or—" She poured herself a drink, her hand unwavering despite the room's tension. "You can accept my conditions and discover that sometimes the most unexpected arrangements produce the most intriguing evenings." Jedediah Tate, previously silent, examined her with analytical eyes. "What convinces you we won't simply take our desires by force?" Martha's smile reappeared, enigmatic and informed. "Because, Mr. Tate, my offer's value exceeds anything obtainable through violence." The men shared glances, each calculating their alternatives. Yet Martha hadn't concluded. "You understand, gentlemen, I know precisely your identities." The statement struck the men like a physical assault. Boone's hand halted midway to his weapon, while Eli's complexion paled in the firelight. Their casual confidence for moments before disappeared like dawn mist. "You're deceiving us," Amos snarled, though his voice lacked certainty. Martha consumed her whiskey slowly, relishing both the sensation and the power shift she felt coursing through the room. Boone Carter, sought for bank theft across 3 territories. Eli Thompson, cattle theft accusations pending. Silas Ward, homicide warrant from Kansas. Amos Rollins, prison escape 2 months past. And Jedediah Tate, she paused, observing Jeremiah's jaw clench, the individual they called a preacher because he prays before executing victims. The subsequent silence was overwhelming, interrupted solely by the external storm's rage. 5 of the territory's most dangerous individuals stood, immobilized, recognizing this isolated farm wasn't the simple target they presumed. "How?" Silas whispered, his weathered features showing confusion and mounting terror. Martha moved to the window, observing the storm as though possessing unlimited time. "My deceased husband served as a lawman, gentlemen, Sheriff Henry Whitmore, before his death. He required me to memorize every wanted notice crossing his desk. He claimed a solitary woman, needed knowledge of whom to trust and whom to fear." She faced him again, and they could observe something perilous flickering in her gaze. The question becomes, what action will I take with this knowledge? Boone recovered his voice initially. "You intend to surrender us." "Do I?" Martha's laughter was gentle yet chilling. "To whom?" "The closest sheriff requires 3 days' travel, and I'm merely 1 woman against 5 armed men. Even if I could contact authorities, what suggests I desire to?" The men exchanged bewildered looks. Nothing regarding this situation remained logical anymore. A solitary woman who recognized their identities, who had welcomed them despite knowing exactly who they were. Martha refilled her glass, the sound unnaturally prominent in the strained quiet. "You understand, gentlemen, I possess a proposal, one potentially benefiting us all." "What variety of proposal?" Jeremiah inquired, his voice cautious and deliberate. "The variety that could provide wealth beyond your greatest fantasies." However, initially, she elevated her glass in mock celebration. "You must decide. Are you remaining or departing? Because if staying, you understand my conditions." Eli shifted uneasily. "This is madness. We cannot." "Cannot what?" Martha interjected. "Cannot pretend civilization for 1 evening? Cannot follow basic regulations in exchange for shelter, sustenance, and knowledge that could transform your existence permanently." The external storm seemed to mirror the internal turmoil. Thunder traversed the sky like distant bombardment. Yet Boone finally resolved the impasse. "Very well," he stated slowly, removing his hat and meeting Martha's gaze directly. "We'll participate in your game, wife." The term lingered like an accepted challenge. As the other men reluctantly agreed, Martha's smile indicated the game had merely commenced, and none comprehended her true intentions. The room's atmosphere transformed like shifting sand. Individually, the men removed their hats and coats, though their movements remained wary, predatory. They participated, but Martha observed the calculation in their eyes, how they positioned themselves to maintain advantage. "Much improved," Martha declared, moving to the stove where Stu had been cooking. "Dinner approaches completion. Husbands." The words sent visible tremors through the group. Eli actually recoiled upon hearing it, while Amos' face reddened with barely restrained fury. Yet Jeremiah spoke first. "This proposal you mentioned, what precisely are you offering?" Martha served Stu into bowls. The domestic seemed surreal, given the circumstances. "Patience, Mr. Tate. A proper wife serves meals before discussing commerce." As she placed food before them, Martha noticed each man tested the stew cautiously, clearly suspecting poison. She chuckled softly and consumed a large portion from the main pot. "Gentlemen, if death was my intention, far simpler methods exist than cooking for you." The men consumed their meal in uncomfortable silence, yet Martha sensed their eyes tracking her every action. She performed a delicate dance, maintaining control while appearing sufficiently vulnerable to avoid triggering their survival responses. "This tastes excellent," Eli acknowledged reluctantly, receiving sharp glances from her companions. "Thank you, dear," Martha responded sweetly. "I always provided proper care for my husband." Silas placed a spoon down with deliberate force. "Sufficient games, lady. You know our identities. You have us addressing you as wife. And you mentioned some arrangement. Time to reveal your intentions." Martha approached the fireplace, retrieving a metal container from behind the logs. Its sight made all 5 men tense, hands moving instinctively toward weapons. "Remain calm," she said, placing the container on the table. "This holds something my husband bequeathed me, something that could enrich us all." She opened the container, revealing document stacks, maps, and apparent official papers. Yet she kept the contents angled from their view, preserving the mystery. "Henry spent years monitoring various businessmen, like yourselves. He recorded routes, hideouts, and most significantly, locations of several unclaimed stolen money and gold caches." Boone leaned forward involuntarily. "You're discussing treasure maps?" "I'm discussing knowledge worth more than any individual robbery you've executed." Martha's fingers traced one document. "Yet here's the difficulty, gentlemen. I cannot utilize this knowledge alone. I require partners, men unafraid of accepting risks." Amos laughed harshly. "And you expect our trust? A lawman's widow?" Martha's expression became serious, almost melancholy. "Mr. Rollins, my husband perished because he maintained honesty, because he followed regulations that resulted in his death by men exactly like you. I finished following those regulations." The confession lingered like an admission, yet as the man began leaning forward, eager for more information, Martha suddenly closed the container. "However, something requires your knowledge first, something regarding why I truly invited you inside tonight." She moved to the window, gazing into the darkness beyond the storm. "You understand, gentlemen, we aren't alone here." The 5 men erupted from their seats like startled creatures, hands reaching for weapons, eyes searching windows for threats. Yet Martha remained composed, almost entertained by their reaction. "Be seated," she commanded firmly. "They're not here for you. Not presently." "Who?" Boone demanded, his revolver partially drawn. "Who else occupies this area?" Martha poured additional whiskey, her movements calculated and controlled. "The Brennan gang. 7 men, all sought for homicide and worse. They pursued you for 3 days." Color vanished from Eli's face. "That's impossible. We eliminated our trail." "Did you?" Martha raised an eyebrow. "You created quite a trail following that bank robbery in Millfield. Witnesses observed you heading this direction. The Brennans desire that money you obtained, and they'll eliminate anyone obstructing them." Jeremiah approached the window, peering into the storm. I observed no one. You wouldn't. They're waiting for the storm's conclusion. Intelligent men don't assault during such weather. Martha sipped whiskey, yet come dawn, they'll arrive. And discovering 5 wanted men in my house, she allowed the implication to suspend. Amos struck the table with his fist. You've trapped us. You orchestrated this entire situation. Did I? Martha's voice remained infuriatingly calm. Did I create the storm? Did I compel you to rob that bank? Did I inform the Brennans of your location? Silas studied her with newfound respect and increasing fear. No, but you knew of their approach. That's why you admitted us. You're exploiting us. Martha smiled, and for the first time, it wasn't entirely pleasant. Gentlemen, I'm providing something far more valuable than simple shelter. I'm offering survival until morning. And if you're exceptionally intelligent, an opportunity to depart with more wealth than you've ever imagined. How? Boone asked, though his tone suggested uncertainty about wanting to know. Martha reopened the container, this time revealing a detailed territorial map. Red X marks dotted the landscape like a constellation of avarice. My husband documented 17 different hideouts containing buried stolen money never recovered. The Brennans know 3 locations. You could know all 17. The map attracted them like moths to illumination, despite their instincts screaming danger. Yet first, Martha continued, we must address the immediate problem. 7 killers desiring your death versus 5 killers wanting to survive. The mathematics don't favor you. Unless, Jeremiah prompted, unless you possess an advantage they don't anticipate. Martha moved to another cabinet, withdrawing something that made all 5 men retreat. Unless you have someone they trust, someone they'd never suspect of betrayal. In her grasp was a faded photograph displaying a younger Martha beside a badge man, and beside them, unmistakably, stood Frank Brennan himself. You understand, gentlemen, Frank Brennan was my husband's closest friend. They rode together for years before Frank chose an alternative path. He still believes I'm merely a mourning widow incapable of harming anyone. The disclosure struck them like a physical blow. Everything they'd understood about this woman, about this situation, was disintegrating. Tomorrow morning, when Frank and his men arrive, I'll invite them for breakfast. I'll claim I haven't seen you. And then, Martha's smile became predatory. That's when you'll assist me in eliminating them all. The word eliminating suspended like a death verdict. For an extended moment, nobody moved. These were hardened criminals who had taken lives previously. Yet something about Martha's cold calculation chilled them completely. You're discussing murder, Eli whispered, his youthful face ashen. I'm discussing survival, Martha corrected. The Brennans won't spare witnesses. They'll kill me for sheltering you, and kill you for existing. The only question is whether we perish as victims or fight as survivors. Boone slowly holstered his weapons. Assuming we agree to this insane scheme, what convinces you we can defeat 7 men? Martha expanded the map wider, revealing detailed property sketches. Because this is my domain, gentlemen. I know every creaking board, every sticking window, every concealed spot around this house. Frank Brennan believes he's visiting a defenseless widow. He's unaware he's entering a trap. She traced her finger along the drawings, marking positions with military strategist precision. The root cellar contains a tunnel leading to the barn. The attic provides sight lines to every approach. And most importantly, Martha approached what seemed a simple coat closet and opened it, revealing an arsenal worthy of an army. Rifles, shotguns, ammunition, and sufficient firepower for a small war. Henry wasn't merely a sheriff, gentlemen. He was preparing for when the law wouldn't suffice. Amos whistled quietly. Sweet mother of pearl, how long have you planned this? Since Frank Brennan murdered my husband, Martha stated quietly. Suddenly, everything aligned. The men exchanged glances, realizing they'd encountered something far greater than simple robbery. This wasn't about money or survival. This concerned revenge, planned and prepared through months of careful plotting. Frank killed Henry? Silas asked. Frank betrayed Henry, leading him into an ambush during what should have been a friendly meeting. My husband died, trusting a man who sold him for 30 pieces of silver. Martha's voice remained steady, yet they could observe the fire burning behind her eyes. I've awaited the proper opportunity. Since then, Jeremiah examined the weapons, his calculating mind already processing possibilities. So, we're not merely partners in this treasure hunt. We're your revenge instruments. You're whatever you choose to be, Martha replied. You can be justice tools, profit partners, or corpses in my yard come morning. The choice is entirely yours. The external storm was beginning to diminish, and they all understood that meaning. Dawn remained hours away, yet when it arrived, it would bring 7 killers expecting easy prey. If we do this, Boone said slowly, if we assist you in killing Frank Brennan and his gang, what assurance do we have that you won't surrender us afterward? Martha smiled, this time genuinely warm. Because my dear husbands, after tomorrow morning, will all be guilty of identical crimes. We'll be united by blood and shared secrets. She raised her glass in toast to partnerships born in necessity and baptized in violence. Yet as the men reluctantly raised their glasses, none noticed Martha's free hand resting on something concealed beneath the table. Something that would alter everything once more. A sound interrupted the toast, making everyone freeze. Distant horse whinnying cut through the weakening storm. Martha moved to the window with practiced silence, peering through a curtain gap. They're early, she whispered. Frank's growing impatient in his advanced age. The 5 men immediately reached for weapons, but Martha raised a restraining hand. Not yet. We maintain the plan, or we all perish. Through the window, they could observe shadows moving in the pre-dawn darkness. 7 figures on horseback, approaching cautiously yet steadily. Frank Brennan's voice carried across the yard, rough and familiar. Martha Whitmore, I know you're awake inside. Martha smoothed her dress and checked a reflection in the window glass. When she turned back to the men, her entire demeanor had transformed. The calculating strategist was gone. In her place stood a grieving widow, vulnerable and frightened. Remember your positions, she whispered. And remember, you're my brothers-in-law here to help settle Henry's affairs. Nothing more. She moved toward the door, but Boone grasped her arm. What if this fails? What if Frank doesn't believe the act? Martha's smile was cold as winter morning. Then we improvise. Yet trust me, gentlemen, Frank Brennan is about to learn that some widows retaliate. She opened the door, and immediately her voice transformed into something soft and welcoming. Frank Brennan, is that truly you? The lead rider dismounted, revealing a tall man with silver-streaked hair and a face marked by years of violence. Yet upon seeing Martha, his expression softened with apparent genuine affection. Martha, darling, I came upon hearing about Henry. I'm deeply sorry for your loss. You're too kind, Frank. Martha's performance was flawless, tears glistening in her eyes. Please come inside from the cold, all of you. As Frank approached, Martha noticed something that chilled her blood. Pinned to his coat was a sheriff's badge, Henry's badge, the same star her husband had worn the day he died. I see you're admiring my new accessory, Frank said, noticing her stare. Poor Henry won't need it anymore. The casual cruelty of the statement almost shattered Martha's composure, yet she managed to maintain her act. Certainly. Come in, please. I have coffee prepared. Frank gestured to his men, and they began dismounting. Yet as they approached the house, one of them, a young man with sharp eyes, suddenly halted. Boss, he called out, we have fresh tracks here. 5 horses, different from ours. They're recent. Frank's hand moved instinctively to his weapon. Martha, are you expecting visitors? Martha's heart raced, yet her voice remained steady. Just Henry's brothers. They came to help me sort through his belongings. You remember them, don't you? It was a desperate gamble, and they all knew it. Frank studied her face in the lamplight, searching for any deception sign. Inside the house, 5 wanted men held their breath and prepared for their lives' battle. Henry's brothers, Frank repeated slowly. Amusing thing, Martha. I recall Henry mentioning once that he was an only child. The lie hung between them like a falling sword. Martha felt the concealed weapon's weight beneath the table, knowing that in seconds everything would explode into violence. Yet then Frank smiled, and the expression was far more terrifying than any scowl. "Well then, darling, I suppose you should introduce me to these mysterious relatives." The moment stretched like a taut wire. 7 armed killers facing a lone woman who had just been caught in a deadly lie. Yet Martha didn't flinch. Instead, she stepped aside and gestured toward her home's interior. Certainly Frank, they're right inside, warming themselves by the fire. As Frank and his men entered, Martha's hand found a concealed trigger beneath the table. What the 5 wanted men didn't know was that Henry had equipped the house with more than just hidden weapons. He had transformed their home into a fortress designed for exactly this moment. The instant Frank stepped fully inside, Martha pulled the trigger. Heavy wooden shutters crashed down over every window with thunderous impacts, plunging the room into near darkness except for firelight. Simultaneously, steel bars dropped behind the front door, trapping everyone inside. What in hell? Frank spun around, but Martha was already moving. "Now!" she shouted. The 5 wanted men erupted from their concealed positions like avenging spirits. Boone and Jeremiah descended from the attic through hidden panels, while Silas and Amos emerged from behind false walls. Eli rose from the root cellar entrance, blocking the rear exit. Frank's men reached for their weapons, but Martha had anticipated their confusion. In the chaos of the moment, with shutters crashing and men appearing from impossible places, precious seconds were lost. "Frank Brennan." Martha's voice cut through the pandemonium like a blade. "You're going to pay for your actions against Henry." Frank spun toward her, his own weapon drawn, but found himself facing Henry's service rifle barrel. "You scheming little..." "Scheming?" Martha's laughter was harsh. "You murdered my husband in cold blood, stole his badge, and came here expecting to find a helpless widow. The only thing I'm guilty of is patience." The battle that followed was brief yet brutal. Frank's men were skilled killers, but they were trapped in unfamiliar territory against opponents who knew every inch of the battlefield. Boone eliminated 2 men with precise shots from the attic position. Jeremiah and Silas worked as a lethal team, while Amos proved why he was feared across 3 territories. When the smoke cleared, 6 of Frank's men lay dead. Only Frank himself remained, wounded and cornered, Henry's badge torn from his coat and lying in the dust. "Please," Frank gasped, blood seeping from a shoulder wound. "Martha, we were friends once. Henry and I." "Henry trusted you," Martha said, standing over him with a rifle still aimed at his heart. "And you led him into an ambush for money. How much was my husband's life worth, Frank? How much did they pay you to betray him?" Frank's eyes darted around the room, seeking mercy he wouldn't find. "It wasn't personal, Martha. It was just business." "Then this is just business, too." The single gunshot echoed through the house like thunder. When it was over, Martha set down the rifle and looked at her unlikely partners. 5 wanted men who had helped her achieve something the law never could: justice for Henry's murder. "Well, gentlemen," she said, walking to the metal box that contained Henry's maps, "I believe we have some treasure to recover." 3 months later, Martha Whitmore was no longer a poor widow struggling to survive on an isolated homestead. She had become one of the territory's wealthiest landowners, her newfound prosperity attributed to investments made with Henry's life insurance money. The 5 men had vanished like smoke, but not before helping Martha recover 3 separate caches of hidden gold and silver. Their wanted posters grew dusty and forgotten as they disappeared into new lives funded by their share of the treasure. Sometimes travelers passing through would ask Martha if she ever got lonely, living alone on such a large spread. She would smile and tell them that she had all the company she needed, the memory of a good husband, and the satisfaction of a debt finally paid. Yet late at night, when the wind howled across the plains like it had during that fateful storm, Martha would sometimes raise a glass of whiskey to the empty chairs around her table and whisper, "To my husbands, wherever you are," because sometimes the most dangerous woman is the one everyone underestimates. And sometimes the best partnerships are forged in the crucible of shared vengeance and mutual need. Frank Brennan had learned that lesson too late. If you enjoyed this story, click the video on your screen now to watch another unforgettable Western tale where destiny and courage collide in ways you never expected. Don't forget to subscribe and consider a super chat to help us keep bringing you more stories like these. Your support means everything to us.